Hello, this is Scott Herbst. I am founder and president of Six Flex Training Consulting, and you are listening to The Flex, a podcast where we have conversations with people who are expressing leadership with the intention that it open up access to you expressing yours. Today on our show, I'm excited to share with you and introduce you to Chelsea Silveira Burgos, who is the owner of Burgos Behavior. They are an agency that provides caregiver training in Northern California. Rather than tell her story, I'm going to let you hear it from her so that you can just hear for yourself and find out for yourself why I invited to be here. Chelsea, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Really, my pleasure. And how are you?
I'm doing well today. Doing very well.
Good. I'm going to start off and just ask you to say a little bit about what had you start your business. And I would especially love to hear, because you've got a model that's a little unique, I think, if you would share, what had you start your business and how you developed it into what it is now.
Yeah. So I started in the field back in 2011. I stumbled into it like most of us do, answered a random ad on a centralvalleyjobs.com. We want to
Uh-huh.
work with kids with autism. And I was like, sure, I don't know what that is, but I'm burned out of, I just got my bachelor's in criminal justice and I didn't want to do that after
Mm.
all. And day one
I did
fell
the
in
same
love.
thing.
Really?
I trained to be an English teacher, and then I did student teaching,
Yes.
and it was like, oh, I don't really like hanging out with high school kids.
Right. And
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, I grew up back then. My hometown was a small town back then. Now it's not, but I also didn't have a lot of diversity in my friend group or any, I was homeschooled. I didn't have any
Mhm.
exposure to kids with disabilities at any time in my life. And day one fell in love. It felt very systematic. Even though I didn't know what I was doing, I was just following a plan and it made
Yeah.
sense. And then as I went forward, it continued to make sense. And I love the families and I love teaching the kids and I love the one-on-one piece.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, the that was back before the insurance mandates for autism services through insurance. So our summers, everything in California was co-funded with regional center and school district, and so there was a lot of breaks in the summer. We didn't have a ton of steady hours, and I
Mm.
was getting married and I had rent to pay, so I went to
Yeah.
work for regional center, which is one of the funding agencies, and I learned a ton, and I made fabulous friends, and I learned a lot about. I like to learn everything there is to learn about structure and systems.
Hmm.
But it never fell off that I wanted to be a BCBA. I had a couple really formative BCBA mentors in my first roles as a one-to-one,
Yeah.
and they really made an impression. So I went back to school. I left Regional Center in 2018 and went back to school and became a BCBA, and it wasn't anything like I had thought it would be. There were a ton of competing contingencies for my time and my attention. I worked in the three-tier model. There was always an RBT. I progressed in the company and it just didn't fill my cup, but I thought, well, maybe it will. And then I had a really devastating personal loss that was one of those things where life is too short. Obviously, I'm not going to ever be happy here. I'm never going to be
Yeah.
able to manage all of the factors of working within a structure that I'm like number 15 down from the top because
Hmm.
I was, I was number 5 up from the bottom and I just had no control. I had no way to make everybody below me happier, and I was
Yeah.
not meeting any expectations for me to the people above me because there was no way that I was going to compromise. I'm not the best employee in that model. So, but that personal loss really, it was like, oh, this has to be it. This is done. I'm super fortunate to have a very supportive, spouse and extended family, and everybody was like, you could do this. That's fine.
Hmm.
Do this. And I have friends in independent practice. It's a very common model here as far as consulting with residential homes. And
Okay.
one of my past colleagues is also her company is a mentorship company, so I signed on with her. I was like her third client because she was just launching it. And through the years of building relationships and just I'm a pretty easy person to get along with, and like I enjoy maintaining friendships. So over that, I was able to start my own practice, and I did caregiver training and
Yeah.
residential home consultation by myself for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Hmm.
And then I had a really cool trip to Australia. I was very fortunate. I got to go for a month to Australia with my daughter. And my husband joined for the first week but couldn't take the whole time. And it was very clear that I needed to scale to some degree, and I wasn't sure how because I wanted to do more trips away. And I need to have, you know, a
Yeah.
more sustainable model.
What how did that get clear for you? I'm curious.
So I have a really good friend who I met randomly in COVID. She messaged me on Instagram to tutor her for her BCBA exam. She said I had friendly eyes on Instagram, and I was like,
Hmm.
that's strange. I'm not sure. But she's like, it was one of those
Nice thing to hear though, isn't it?
kismet things. And then so,
Yeah.
fast forward 3 years and we're in a car in Tasmania going to, central Tasmania for
Uh-huh.
a foggy weekend at like this random inn. And she goes, so like, what are your goals? I said, I want to do more of this. She goes, well, what money do you need? And I said, well, a
Mhm.
lot more than I'm making. And in my head, I thought, I don't know how to make more if I don't have RBTs. I don't want
Yeah.
RBTs because I need to have more contact with my families. I have to have more contact. And the RBT model is really, in my math, for the funders that I have access to, is only
Yeah.
profitable if there's like 3 RBT hours to 1 BCBA. So we were just talking for like 6 hours in the car, and it came to I needed an office and I
Yeah.
needed a mid level or 1 or 2 full time BCBAs.
Yeah.
So I could do about 20 hours of the work I love, and they could do 40 hours of the work they love, and we could make a big impact.
Yeah.
So that's how that came. It was a lot of talking and driving in beautiful countryside is how that came up. Travel frees me up mentally, and so one of my goals is to do more of that. Yeah. So
Awesome.
then I got, I was driving
Well,
around.
hey, I don't want to step over
Oh
that.
yeah.
Um, because I think this is what you pointed to actually is something valuable anyone could use.
Mhm.
Um, it sounds like you actually took some time to say, well, what do I really want?
Yes.
And connected with that, and then looked at, well, what is it going to take to get what I want? And started just dealing with the reality of that.
Yes.
And
It was like a values, my value, anytime I do a values assessment, freedom/choice is utmost. I, everything boils down to do I have choice in every aspect of my life, which, freedom is what it says on like the charts, but I really think that choice is my main driving factor. And more money is choice, more time freedom is choice, having my own business is choice. Like that's all baked into I don't really like external demands that I don't have
yeah,
a choice to follow.
yeah. I'm curious right now, would you consider this conversation choice?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
for
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
that's one thing I appreciate about being a business owner
Mhm.
is I'm not getting rich at all.
Mhm.
I'm doing fine,
Mhm.
but I love being able to do things like this where
Yes.
it's like, you know what? I can schedule that conversation
Yes.
in for me, the middle of the afternoon, for you, for,
Yep. 9 a.m.
earlier in the
Yep.
morning. Um, or I can, you know what? I can make time to go to the gym, or it's 4 o'clock. I've been in front of the computer. I can take the dogs for a walk,
Right. Right.
and I might work on Saturday a little.
Yes. Yes. I have
Right.
we're in an odd state right now where there's a very clear ramp up happening on our caseloads. We've gotten some new contracts, new
Hmm.
cases. Our families and our the residential homes that we consult with are all happy and spreading our name. The families that we consult with and, provide support are happy and spreading our name. And we've just got a huge influx of referrals. And I immediately, whenever I get referrals, there's a lot of tasks. It's like, okay, what pair, what's the requesting, process for the authorization? We have to schedule this. And I revert to, no, it's not choice. But I have to center myself of, you have the systems in place, Chelsea, follow them. You have to follow the rules for everyone else to be able to execute. And that has helped me a little bit, being the demand avoidant person I am. I've made the rules and I need to follow them so my team can do their job, and then I will have choice on the other end of this. Like, I'm choosing to take these cases, of course, but with that comes a set of like 20 to-do list items each case, and I get a little bit but I have to center myself back to like, this is the plan. You think back
Mhm.
to Tasmania in the blue car. That's what my friend and I say. Remember in the blue car? Little blue?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's really great. I I'm hearing in that too, that you've got something that you did the work to really connect with. Here's what I want. Here's what's important to me. Here's what an aligned life looks like.
Yes.
And the steps to get there, right? The actions to get there. But you also have done something that keeps you connected to it.
Hmm.
I know it's easy for me to get caught up in the doing of things
Yeah.
and forget why I'm doing it,
Yes.
right? So I think that's something really valuable. I am curious. You mentioned you don't like following rules. We actually, when we talked about doing this, that was something you mentioned as well,
Hmm.
right? And as a business owner, I imagine it's like you have choice. You don't have a boss, but you
Hmm.
also pointed to that you got to follow policies.
Yes.
Got to have some procedures in place. Tell me as you've grown, uh, if you're willing, if you share a little bit about just what that's been like and what you've discovered about yourself as a leader
Hmm.
and what it's take to be like, oh, you know what? Demands don't just come from a boss; they come from employees or clients, or and how you've managed yourself to actually meet their demands, but also like grow a business.
Yeah. The payer demands are usually the payers that I'm most familiar with, and the demands that seem more arbitrary, or that I know why they came about and it wasn't because of me. It was some other it was some other provider 20 years ago did this decision that didn't work well. I'm speaking like of more public payers, not insurance payers. But that I'm like, oh man, like that rule exists because of this incident. I know that, the due date for this is because someone missed a deadline and then there was a mediation, or not mediation, like a state level hearing. Like, I know
Right.
that's why we have to do this. And it gets a little bit, um, it's just maladaptive. Like, I do so much better when I accept that I'm choosing to work with this pair. I love the cases that I get from them. It's a very flexible model. Like Regional Center is one example. Um, and it's a great resource, and I love being a regional center vendor. And I'm vendored with two regional centers. I love it. And then these rules are from the state level that having worked in having worked in the system for a long time, I know why they started. And I have to just say, like, it's okay, Chelsea. Follow the rule, and then nobody emails you about being late on this. Or follow the rule and you don't have to do any other follow up on people questioning you. And for some reason, that is just very deep in me, is question every rule. And my employees don't have that. So when I'm setting a rule that makes my job easier or to track this stuff, they don't question it. And in my head, I'm like, they're going to question this and then I'm going to have to explain this. So let me make sure I have a set rationale. But if I set an expectation, they're like, okay, cool, no problem. I'm like, oh, this is how we're different. Okay, maybe not everybody has maladaptive demand avoidance. So that's my next thing, is just accepting that I am the one that makes the rules in this company. And if
Mhm.
someone que- they've demonstrated that they will question things as needed, and
Yeah.
then I can trust them to question things as needed. Nobody's brewing in the background of bitterness or, discontent. Like if I asked a question, it was always met in past roles with, well, why are you asking that? Just do what I said. And that's just not how I have ever been able to live.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm realizing that I don't need to worry about if people who choose to work for me are like that, because I've created a space that if you do have a question, ask. I try to provide as much rationale as needed, but ultimately this is just the policy. And then if there's a problem, we can work on it. But I don't need to worry if they are reacting how I react to policies.
Yeah. How do you and you may not even know this, but I'm curious. How do you find that feedback and how do you spot it?
hmm
Does that make sense?
I have specifically asked, like when I had to set some timelines of when I need a report by so I can get it in on time after I review it.
Yeah.
I've historically never met deadlines like that other people are setting, and it causes problems for me. And they just started meeting the deadlines. And I said, "Is that like this is doable?" Like I was met with, "Yeah, you told me to submit it by the 20th so you could review it by the 22nd of every month."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, so when I ask you something and you can tell if you feel like it's unreasonable, please tell me." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." And so I asked after I was baffled by everybody just meeting my expectations without pushback, because I felt an internal pushback to even setting the expectation. Because in my head I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh, they're gonna react like I react of, I don't want to. Then I just specifically asked. And I try to create the space of what's your feedback? Not let me know if you have questions. Like, what do you think of that? Like a very open space.
Yeah.
I try to
That's
do that regularly.
that's something I want people to take away. What you just said, I think is really brilliant because it is such a vast difference between asking, do you have feedback?
hmm
And what feedback do you have?
hmm
Because that second question will have people look.
Yes.
And even so, and they may end up saying, you know what, I actually don't have any feedback. Everything's great. I'm totally happy. But it will at least have them like really look versus I know to yes or no questions. A lot of times my first option answer is just no.
hmm
Like people will say like, and I've observed this too. It's funny because I'll see people and do this myself. Well, do you have questions? And then I'll say no, and then I'll ask a question, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, but those yes or no questions, for whatever reason, they seem to veer towards no when there
hmm
might be something worth looking at. So I think that's a powerful practice you touched on.
Yeah. I feel the same way of I do the same thing. I say no, and then I'm like, oh, actually, yes. But I also with the this sounds this reflects I don't know how this reflects on me, but I don't have respect for just positional authority. That's never been something I am able to do. I
Yeah.
don't I don't see a position like an office or a power or like a
Mhm.
role as default respect.
Yeah.
I'm not able to. And that is not, I guess, the norm in what I have found. There's a lot
Yeah.
of just positional authority that people have for me that I find baffling. And
Mm.
I don't know if that's possibly imposter syndrome or just my own lens on things, but I have had to work intentionally because my team does have positional authority. Like they do like have just positional reverence. They're like, "Oh, okay, Chelsea's the boss." I'm like, "Yeah, but I want your thoughts. I hired you because I want your thoughts." So to reposition on, yes, I acknowledge that I am the boss and I want your feedback and I'm
Yeah.
intentionally seeking it has been a shift that they're working on too. Because I'm like, no, it's okay to have opinions and it's okay to say, no, let's try this, or what about this?
Yeah, I'm going to challenge that a little bit. And I don't think you're wrong per se, except I think there's something you're missing
Okay.
and you don't know what it is. Because, I talk to a lot of business owners and I've worked in a lot of different businesses. And it's one of the cool things about my job is I get to see what's going on in different companies and how different styles will lead different things.
Hmm.
And and there's places where people cut corners, and that's the culture.
Right.
And there's places where if you're not hounding people, it won't get done.
Hmm.
And that's the culture. And you might not know what it is, but there's something uh I'd say it's like something you're doing, but I think it's venturing into the realm of being, which I mean, being as behavior analyst, it's really just like fine grained behaviors we have trouble defining.
Right.
But something about the tone you're setting that I wonder if it carries through so that people see that if you're asking for something, it's like something that really actually needs to get done and there's a reason behind it. And I can hear in your speaking that you don't it sounds like you work to make sure you're not making arbitrary requests.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I wonder if just that concern and that intentionality communicates somehow.
This is clicking because there was a conversation last month. We were under a crunch of a few a few like really heavy deadlines and I had said, "Hey, prioritize this." And me using the word prioritize, one of my BCBAs was like, "Oh yeah, that I didn't realize." She goes, "You never say the word prioritize, so I'm getting this done in 2 days." And I was like, "Oh, I never say the word prioritize?" And she said, "No, just everything you say is this needs to get done, but prioritize triggered in her like this is top like right now."
Yeah.
So potentially, and I try to automate, like that's my hyperfixation is how much can I automate using, my CRM or XYZ, but I
Yeah.
do not like tracking for the sake of tracking. So that's a interesting thought. I'm going to need to chew on that.
Well, see, that's it. I love this. I was like, how are we? I was worried for a second. We were venturing into some woo-woo there. Because I appreciate a little woo-woo in my life
Yeah.
here and there. Every time I go to New Orleans, I make sure I get my tarot cards read. Um, but uh, but what I'm hearing as we're talking it through is that you really actually look at like the reason and the intention, like the practical intention behind your decisions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
And
what gets us to the end result with as few clicks as possible. That's my
yeah.
mantra. How do we get as few clicks as possible? Like
So
because
I
a lot of it
expect,
is, like I want to be as efficient with my time so I can spend more time with my clients and I want that for my employees too. So yeah, that is I try to run a really lean steps, and procedures role. So that's fascinating. I'm going to think about that.
yeah, well, I bet people pick up on that and that trust you to have done the thinking.
Thank you. I hope
And I
so.
think what people can take away, listeners can take away, is that if you're making decisions, start with, well, what do you really want out of it? And does our pathway there align with it? Or does this decision align with that result, whether
Hmm.
it's, for making our jobs easier, providing better value to the clients, improving
Yeah.
a process, et cetera, et cetera. And if you make that a habit, that becomes your culture.
One of my part-time BCBAs is one of my best friends, and she's always, "What's the ultimate outcome?" So that's exactly what we're talking about right now. What's the ultimate outcome of this process? Not just with client outcomes, but what's the ultimate outcome that I need as the owner for compliance, for, efficiency, to make sure that every dollar matters and that we have the most fun and make the biggest impact, and then backwards engineer from there. So I must be, because I don't, that makes me, if that is the case and why I'm not being questioned, that would be great. That means that I have met my efficiency goals.
Let's throw it on the table as one possibility.
Okay.
Um, well, I am curious. I don't know if you said this, I missed it. How did you arrive at the model of like, you know what, we're going to focus on caregiver training?
I was very burned out on all of the moving pieces of working in a tiered model.
Yeah.
I think that my ideal client and where I really am good is appropriate for caregiver training. I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I, and I look at like residential facilities too. They have BCBA consultation because there is a significant behavior need. And I still see that model as caregiver training, because you're training the DSPs, the direct service providers, to provide the services. They're not necessarily RBTs running drills. They're embedding all of the learning opportunities into these routines. They're embedding all of the
Yeah.
strategies into the daily life. So I view that as natural skill building opportunities, and that just makes sense for me. I don't really, the direct drills model, or just the intensive, or for the more profound community where they really do need RBTs to teach skills, that isn't what I do when someone lives with their parent. So that would be in a more appropriate model for someone else. But in a residential home, we are working on really embedding all of those skills into the natural environment. So it aligns on both ends, and it's
Yeah.
way less logistics on my end to schedule. The RBT life is hard, and I just don't have it in me anymore to work on a bunch of different schedules and like make sure that I'm taking care of direct providers. So in my consultation, I can make sure that parents take care of themselves as best we can and embed all these learning activities or learning opportunities into their lives. And in the consultation model for residential or day program, they're not my employees, I'm consulting. So that has, as far as choice goes, I need like further removal from as many employees as possible. Like I have my core people. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's where I landed. I looked on it as emotionally, where I was able to give my best to people and figure it out from there where I add the most value. And it's in the consultation and letting someone else employ 15 to 20 people and take care of them as employees. I can just do the behavior thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Before I switch gears and ask you about the future and what's next for you,
Mhm.
is there anything you want to share that anything you were hoping I would ask you that I didn't ask you yet that you would just
No,
love to share with people?
I don't think so. No, this was good so far.
Well, great. Then I am curious what is in your future. And I'm always interested in, aside from what do you want to do, where do you want to take your business? How do you see that you want to personally grow and develop
Mhm.
uh, yeah, as a human being to fulfill what's next?
Yeah, I've been thinking about work optional as a concept for a long time. I love what I do, and the choice value, I would really like it to be an option. So to grow enough to get in a financial spot where
Yeah.
I can then do all of the awesome passion projects that I have is like the horizon.
Hmm.
I have a ton of passion projects that I love. I
Tell me
have my
about two of those.
two of those. So I have
Two of
my
those.
Accessible Smiles program.
What's that?
It is my behavior desensitization program, behavior dental, and it's very cool. It is systematically assessing what is going wrong at a dentist office visit where behaviors got in the way of routine care, because routine dental care is paramount to health. And there's in California, I'm not sure the other states, I'm pretty sure it's more dire in other states, but California, there's an 18-month to 2-year waiting list for sedation dentistry because of so many people not being able to access routine preventative care in their neighborhood dentist.
Yeah.
There's other options. There's in-home registered dental hygienist and alternative practice, but they're not enough. There's not enough. And there are so many sensory components to a dental visit that we can practice at home
Mm.
with consistency and a skilled eye guiding you. And so I developed this specialized program. It's called Accessible Smiles with Regional Center because they're one of my favorite partners.
Yeah.
And every case we've had so far has been successful of getting previously no success at a dental visit to within, my longest has been 6 months, but really
Uh-huh.
talk about low treatment intensity. It's small practice sessions is where you win with the scent-based care. It's
Uh-huh.
So that has been cool. There's so much I want to do with that is not necessarily specific to the client work. It's like, how do we scale this to train dentists on this? Because the dental office that I work with is really passionate about this. I'm so fortunate to partner with them. And there's
Yeah.
so much growth. And the estimates here with the community of dental professionals I work in and who are doing research in this area is about 80% of the people in line for sedation dentistry don't need that. They just can't be, like, if we had interventions and supports to get them into their neighborhood dentist, then the 20% who really do need it, especially restorative care, you most likely are going to need to be under if you need a bunch of cavities filled because
Yeah.
of past dental visit traumas. But those 20% of people might not need to wait 18 months. And can you imagine waiting with a toothache for 18 months?
No.
People are getting taken to the ER and knocked out and hack job, on emergency care because you're going to get sepsis if you
Right.
this is a crisis, and it's been a crisis for a long time. But I have a lot of creative juices that I want to have more time to unleash, to like take this concept of this doesn't have to be this hard. That's where I want to go next. That's one of my big passion projects. Of dental offices are willing to do it if we can get everybody on the same page, because I'm not even going to go into all the financial contingencies in play to take extra time for a patient. It's a long workup process to get the dental visit as efficient as possible because dental codes are even more complex than ABA codes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other projects are, I have this staff training that's been mulling in my head, this staff training like modules, not an RBT module, not like a 40-hour RBT module, but I just think that there's like this behavior foundations staff training for DSPs that I have mulling that so many agencies that serve adults could use on an affordable level if I could develop it. So
Mhm.
that's in the works. That's on the back burner mulling in my head. I have a lot of things that just like live back there, and then sometimes I'll be up until 3 a.m. because I had like a burst. Like, that's what I do now. So
Yeah.
those are the goals.
Awesome. And have you thought about what it's going to take you personally to
Yeah,
move from here to there?
I have. It's trusting that the systems that I've developed in the business, my
Uh-huh.
team can execute, and trusting myself to keep track of it because I've got a solid team. I take a lot of responsibility for things I think they probably have a handle on.
Hmm.
And the next step is freeing up more of my time and trusting the systems, that the checks and balances that I've developed to
Yeah.
do that. And then just I am only going to learn by trying that. I'm only going
Yeah.
to learn that. It's not going to be like a, oh yeah, I feel ready. It's like, no, you need to try it.
Yes.
So that's the next step, is trusting that I have done a good job of thinking everything through and just letting it be.
Awesome. I got one more question.
Okay.
How can people reach you if they'd like to contact you?
Just send me an email, chelsea@burgosbehavior.com.
All right. And
CHELSEA at
we will
burgosbehavior.com.
put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Chelsea, it has been such a delight talking to you.
Likewise.
Thanks so much for just your willingness to share. Thanks for working through that little thing with me. Like, what is it?
I really appreciate that
I
too.
love conversations like that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you, expand on the smiles and, trust your systems to develop the training. And,
Thank you.
and I look forward to sharing this with our listeners.
Yeah. I'm so
Listeners,
excited.
I look forward to seeing you back here.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Chelsea.
Bye. Thanks.